Three, two, one. Hello, everybody. We are live. It's DCA Live with CTO Larson, Mando, aka Rect Mando, and Marty Party. This is going to be a banger of a show. We have a lot to discuss. Oh, Marty even has some fireworks behind us. So this one is going to be called Crypto Election Shockwave, but we're also going to be talking about AI and AI trading and the impact of AI, and literally what we've been talking about for a long time now. And CTO, you know, the confluence, the collision course between crypto and AI and what that means for us as traders. We'll go over all the Bitcoin news, all the crypto news, a little bit of macro news, and what's happening around the world. And boy, has it been a shocking 8 or 9 days with everything that's transpired in the world. It just shows you the, how do I say, fragile, volatile, shaky nature of the planet. Does anybody want to add anything onto that before we jump in?
I mean, the world didn't actually change, guys. It's all in the metaverse. It's all in the media. It's all in the messaging. It's all in the binary, right? The birds are still chirping. The leaves are still falling. The sun is still rising. At the end of the day, we're being manipulated to believe things, and it's fine. I think it's perfectly normal. Now, I'm just fascinated how it affects crypto, and I think it's all the negatives play into crypto, all the positives playing into crypto. I just feel like technology it's time. It's a renaissance. We're going into a renaissance.
That's extremely well framed, actually. Mando, any thoughts of this crazy world?
Yeah, it just kind of feels like a TV show at the moment. Each week, this feels like another crazy twist on the TV show. Like in the last week, we've had one presidential candidate nearly get assassinated and the other one drop out of the race. Like it's kind of just crazy. So yeah, it's. I don't really know what to expect next, but I do think all this tells me there's going to be a lot more twists and turns until the election in particular.
Yeah, a nervous time. CTO, any thoughts on the crazy world we live in?
Markets are still open. Everything looking fantastic. I'm just happy about the incredible strength we've seen in crypto in a week where almost all other assets have had a very rough week. It's fantastic strength we're seeing. I love it.
Yeah, it's funny. Yesterday, I tweeted immediately the second I got a Wall Street Journal notification. And I warned people against mainstream media, but they were the first on the story. I think they had an exclusive that Biden was dropping out. And I immediately tweeted, okay, here we go. Futures are going to explode upwards and crypto markets going to rip. And everybody's like, huh? How is that even possible? But it was possible. And that's just the nature of what's going on. So let's talk about the agenda today. We've got a lot of stuff. First of all, Gox Times. Mt. Gox is moving more funds, which is actually scaring the market a little bit. We've gone through this many, many times. Mando, you're on, and Marty, you're on top of this movement. I do believe no more than 46% will be sold, max, worst case scenario. And I think it'll be staggered over time. And after seeing the German case of 52,000 Bitcoin being absorbed within less than 3 weeks, most of it in 2 weeks, I think the market's big enough to absorb any dumpage from Mt. Gox. Thoughts?
Yeah, go ahead, CEO. Mando, go ahead.
I'm not particularly worried by this. They obviously had transferred some to the Kraken address already. So now this is Bitstamp. Again, this is the majority of the Bitcoin left if they start to move it. They have about 6 billion, and we're expecting to see a lot of that move towards Bitstamp probably in the next 2 or 3 days. But we've kind of already gone over this. It feels as though this is expected. There was a poll out, I think last week on Reddit, which said only 25% of users were planning on selling. So, and these polls can be very, very difficult, but I think it probably puts in the mindset that you're not going to see a wide-scale dump by people here. And if there is, it will probably be more like a drip feed. So I feel like this is priced in far more than the German government selling, or even if the US was to turn around and sell their amounts. I feel like this has been priced in for, at this stage, years. And once we see the back end of this, I think it's going to be a really good buying opportunity.
Yeah, and the timing is impeccable too, because, well, we'll get to the other kind of timeline of what's coming up towards the end of the year. It's going to be a very exciting second half. I can promise everybody that. But one of the absorption mechanisms is what we call Booyaa. So all of a sudden we have Bitcoin treasuries popping up all over the place. We know MetaPlanet is DCAing in every week. Shout out to Dylan Leclerc and Mark Yusko, who are on the board as external directors. We now have this new launch. Mando, you picked up on this morning. Boyaa, I don't know if you know how to say it. $100 million in Bitcoin for its corporate treasury. And, you know, I've been obsessed with corporate treasuries because of MicroStrategy since August 2020. But it's funny, it took nearly 4 years for the rest of the world to pile on. How much of a trend is this? Marty, I'm going to give this one to you. Are you tracking these treasuries out there right now?
Yeah, I think it's significant, specifically for Japan. To see, we know Japan, you know, used to be a superpower on the way to having the greatest economy in the world in the 80s, and made some macro mistakes, some monetary policy mistakes, and I don't think they're going to make those mistakes again. Their biggest mistake was holding too many US treasuries. So I think they're moving to hard money in reserve. It's going to be either gold and Bitcoin or a combination of both, a basket. But I believe we're seeing the beginnings of it, like we were talking about earlier before the show. These things start slowly, but then they snowball.
Exactly.
I think Japan is becoming a major buyer.
Yeah.
Personally.
Game theory. CTO, any thoughts on the game theory happening here?
Yeah,
Like
I've been a huge student of trends. And it usually, like we talked about before the show started, trends usually start with one crazy person. And this time it was Elon Musk, who go in, you know, buy a lot of Bitcoin with company money, with the company treasury money. And then everyone else go, oh, what's he doing? You know, does it even work? Is it legal? Blah, 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 blah. But, and then not much happens. But then comes the second one. And then comes the third one. And I'm not talking about like MicroStrategy here, who have it as their sole business model, but other companies who might be doing other things primarily. And if those companies start actually moving into this and start using their company treasuries to buy Bitcoin, that's an enormous amount of money, guys. That would be bigger than the ETFs and everything. And if this trend starts picking up, if we can see the beginning of a trend forming, that will, I think, be the biggest event in Bitcoin, one of the biggest events in Bitcoin's history. Because companies have a lot of money. And I think a lot of companies, if they start doing this and they're successful, they will feel that it's easier making money this way than with their products or services that they are selling. And this might really start picking up. So I'm very, very happy to see this.
Yeah, man, and I'm going to throw a curveball at you. You know money. The S&P 500 have $4.1 trillion in cash sitting on their balance sheet. I call it a melting ice cube. You know, rates are going to be cut. What happens next?
Well, what I thought was interesting about this is this company is actually in China, so its headquarters in Hong Kong. MetaPlanet is Japanese, but this is a Chinese company that's gone and bought 100 million. And we've already spoken last week about rumors that there's been talk about it being unbanned. Now this is Hong Kong, but to see $100 million, I mean, compared to what the size we saw on ETF trading in China, this is a big buy. I think you make a really good point about corporate treasuries. One of the main issues about big tech is that they are kind of handcuffed in what they can spend their corporate treasuries on, because M&A is very, very difficult for a lot of these big tech companies. So a lot of it has gone into kind of CapEx style things like we've seen with the chips. You know, obviously there's some huge CapEx spending, and part of that's just driven because they need to actually spend some of this money. But I'd be very, very unsurprised if they also moved into owning Bitcoin as a form of investment. Why not? So yeah. I would definitely expect to see lots of filings around this in Q3 and Q4 earnings.
And then we have the pension funds too beginning to put their toes into the market. And we think, you know, cash treasuries on the S&P 500 is big, nothing compared to pension funds around the world. And the Japanese pension funds are in a serious world of hurt: negative birth rate, aging population, shrinking economy. It's a perfect cocktail for Bitcoin. And then we have PlanB. Love him or hate him, I am a fan of Stock to Flow, and I'm a fan of PlanB. He came out with this thing. He called it the Final Countdown, which is, I think, a German song I remember from my younger years. And
it's
he talks
a
about
Swedish song. Important correction. It's a Swedish song.
Thank you for that. I'm not good on the music, but 4 red dots. So basically, 4 red dots. It's rare to have so many without a massive kickoff before things really explode upwards. Does anybody follow Stock to Flow? And Anything to share on this one?
Feels like the sort of thing that people follow in bull markets and ridicule in bear markets. And we're currently in a bull market, so it's become popular again. I think it's an interesting model. And it basically, if you go into how it's modeled, it's really around gold and the demand for a finite asset like that. I think, who knows? Like, what I tend to find is stock to flow, as you can see from that graph, can be right on a long-term basis, but very, very off if you're trying to predict short-term trades around it. So I was kind of surprised that he was talking about a short-term trade into this. But yeah, I do think Bitcoin's going to $1 million. So yeah, I'm in agreement.
And one thing that's very cool about this too is it's based on the premise of stuff that I've been looking at for 30 years, like real estate stock to flow, gold stock to flow, platinum stock to flow. They're really, really tight, despite many of them being manipulated markets, like from a very solid approximation, kind of like the power line and Metcalfe's law and things like that. Marty, any technologist perspective on PlanB?
I think generally his name is pretty accurate. I think PlanB is coming to fruition. I think the world, you saw today the Chinese plenum ended. So they had their first sovereign monetary meeting as the CCP, and they're cutting interest rates. They've declared this morning, I posted it. They're cutting interest rates, they're talking stimulus. They're in deflation. So China always precedes us. I think PlanB, there's going to be PlanBs, and just Metaplanet. Now you see the Chinese companies going into Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is the PlanB, and that supports PlanB's stock to flow. It's pretty much, we're going to see supply shock.
Yeah.
And supply shock in this market with this liquidity situation can be extreme price impact. We were talking about it this morning, guys. What is your guys' thought? I mean, as a store of value, people argue, I get it all day on Twitter. Yeah, but Bitcoin's so volatile. How can it be a store of value? And then I argue, well, one Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin. What's volatile is the price in dollars. And, this is really the interesting thing is, will Bitcoin become more stable as these new buyers enter? And stock to flow sort of supports that. So I've always felt stock to flow is the solution to stabilizing the price of Bitcoin. If you go into his charting. So I think he's great. If you ask AI, is PlanB stock to flow correct? Or S2F in a valuation model? It says it has been used well to make several predictions, but it hasn't actually been very valuable. So I don't know. I'm an AI guy. I really believe in the answers. So I don't tend to look at it, but I love his name. I think crypto is the PlanB.
I think Manda's on the money. Don't use it to trade month to month, but over multi-year periods, it's pretty much on the money. And that's just a function of the law of economics of supply and demand. Next thing we got, because we're going to talk a lot about AI and markets, CNN came out last night and said the election is tied between Kamala Harris and DJ Trump. And then you go to PolyMarkets and they say something completely different. So I know, Marty, you spent a lot of time in PolyMarkets. It's as if these crypto markets where a lot of money is put on the line tend to be extremely precise. Like they predicted things like candidates dropping out. Where is all this going when you have now crypto representing markets and odds for anything, whether it's sport or elections or whatever else, and people putting money on the line, and it ends up being very precise versus the mainstream media, which is completely wrong.
I think we're witnessing the power of truth and trust. I mean, I've always said binary options and prediction markets on chain would sort of be the use case that introduces true democracy back through technology. We've never really had technology to support democracy. Blockchain is now, it's built basically for governance and voting. That's the primary use case is governance. I mean, every crypto token at the end of the day is a governance token in some way. So, and the voting of governance tokens is way far ahead. We could do crypto elections tomorrow and it would be 99.99% more accurate and safe than current elections all around the world. And I think these PolyMarket type new use cases are showing us how people want to put their money where their mouth is. I think that's what we're seeing. People like to put their money in what they believe. And there's $330 million in the presidential election winner on PolyMarket right now in that bet. A giant pot of money, almost it's approaching $500 million, guys. It has Donald Trump at 65, Kamala Harris at 29, Michelle Obama at 4, and then another Democratic politician at 2. It's basically laying down where the people are, and you can look at the individual bets. Donald Trump is 41 million. Kamala Harris is 22.7 million. Michelle Obama is 19.8 million. So you have almost as much money being put on Kamala and Michelle Obama right now. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So you won't get that in the mainstream media.
The two things I would say against that, or maybe not against it, but some things to consider is, do you think Biden would have dropped out if PolyMarket hadn't existed? Like, if we didn't have this market telling everyone that he's about to drop out, which is going all over mainstream media, do you think he would have even dropped out? Do you think that this move towards online truth is actually forcing the hand to a certain extent of things actually happening? Like the idea that we keep on seeing the better odds that he's going to drop out and then suddenly he just drops out? Or do you think it's the other way around? And I think the second thing to note is there's definitely a Republican lean to PolyMarket. So what I would say is that the polls and Predictor is show an more even race than PolyMarket shows. And I think that's partly because PolyMarket and crypto users as a whole skew to the right, particularly at the moment, because, you know, there's been a very anti-crypto agenda from the current Democrats. So,
you know, I actually researched that, Mando, and it's super interesting because I wanted to get to the bottom of it. Somebody said, oh, crypto is all right-wing. It's actually not. So the whole libertarian movement actually started on the left. The people on the right that are getting into it, they're getting into it for returns, but crypto fundamentally is left-natured from the very beginning. CTO,
well, they say they say libertarianism is leftward leaning on social policy, which is actually not what the right way. Like, for example, you would say that, you know, you can do things with your own body that you're allowed to do, which again, for a lot of social issues, the right actually leans more towards regulation or the state intervening. So that's what they say. But for economics, yeah, it is more right leaning.
But why would you say that? I mean, just out of interest, because if you ask, I just asked Grok, is there a Republican lean to PolyMarket? It says no.
Well, I think
the data suggests you're wrong. Just saying. I don't know why you would say that. Just give. What is the thesis there?
I would say that crypto Twitter as a whole is. Well, I would say crypto Twitter as a whole is more right-leaning because at the moment, crypto has been attacked more by the current Democratic Party. And I would say, just anecdotally, it feels like that. I would say even in our comments or in the comments of my own post, like, it feels like we have that the current crypto market feels like it's been attacked by the current Democratic Party. And so it has leaned more right, particularly over the last 2 or 3 years. And I would assume and expect that to be shown in PolyMarket as well. It's the same way, for example, that England are always, you know, in football games are always voted as the favorite because a lot of the betting happens on English betting markets. There's always a lean to where the market exists. So my guess is that PolyMarket is skewing more right for a lot of these things than things like Predictor or other forms of prediction sites are showing.
Yeah, CTO, how do you see this playing out? Left or right, crypto?
I mean, I'm not a political expert, so I don't know. But of course, it is important to try to understand this because it has enormous impact on the markets. We've seen that this year. So I'm really interested in trying to understand. I don't know who will win the election. I don't claim to have any insights in that. But when doing polling, any kind of polling, it's difficult because first you have to find a representative set of people. And even if you do, it's not enough. Because you don't know that maybe you ask all those questions, all those people, they're going to answer. But then perhaps one part of them don't go vote in the end.
Yeah.
So you still don't know until basically you're asking people on the voting day in the queue or something like that. Only then you can know. So I think there will be an element of uncertainty. I think I'm much more cynic. I think they have planned the switch of the Democratic presidential candidate to perfect it in time. It seemed impossible that he would run, looking at his medical situation, I think. I mean, from what I could observe through the TV, like I said, my old mother, who was a nurse, she could see 1 year ago that he had probably dementia, onset at least. And then you have to, bring in another candidate, and it feels like they timed it so that it's not too late, because if you do it too late, you've already lost the election. But also kind of do it a little bit close to the election, so they come like a honeymoon period. The new candidate seems fresh and different and new, and there's a honeymoon period and kind of perhaps last until the election. So I think that is cynically, I think they planned the timing, and here it is. Of course, I don't know.
A good point you mentioned regarding polls, and the joke I always say is the people that respond to polls are the people that answer their phones, and they're people who typically are doing nothing. It's like, I don't answer a phone. Let's talk about the cycles and the run to elections. And again, for the audience, to be clear, the reason we care is we care about markets and alpha and trading, and that's why we care. It's the only reason. We're not being political. Marty, you put this chart up yesterday, I think it was, the run to elections. Walk us through how you view the world.
I mean, firstly, just to update that, one of the big things I say constantly to my community is, do you want to be right or do you want to be rich? It's a very important question to ask yourself, and it runs into the political thing. People, that's where you want to be right. But at the end of the day, I'm just a trader. I don't really care. Whatever's good for crypto, literally, I feel is good for me at this point in my life. So, my point previously about the PolyMarket thing is I'm just anxious to find data to support that as a data person. This chart I started building a while back, and I follow it, and it is unbelievably accurate. It's showing you the jostle for new money and for sort of large trader moves in money sideways as we approach the election. And you can almost see how they are creating, the market makers are creating this confluence together with good old Jerome Powell with the US rates. They're creating the tension that they will use, I personally, in my opinion, believe, for a rebasing event, which is a monetary shift.
So we got rate cuts coming, we got money printing coming, we have a kind of a disjoint between the QQQ technology and crypto Bitcoin. But you got kind of talking about it all compressing together and going up together as one, or?
Yeah, I think as an investor, you need to look at the early leaders, because these are usually the sort of use case specific investments. So these are the things, Solana and Tesla are the sort of, they're going to build the things, and it's all about robo taxis, transportation, Tesla, and pretty much running the nuts and bolts of life, deliveries of everything. And Solana will be delivering money around, to whatever money, any assets. These are like the utilities of the new system. That's how the way I see it. The next row sort of are the sort of well-balanced, well-market-made, controlled, sort of reserve assets. And you can see Bitcoin is pretty much solidifying it in that crowd, along with NVIDIA, which is the compute function. That is our computing index, actual hardware. And then you can see the US rates at the bottom. And as we confluence now, we're going to watch this very clearly. And I think it's going to tell us pretty much the end result. To me, this is telling us the end result. We're going to have a gold and Bitcoin-backed economy. I don't know how they'll set up. I think every jurisdiction might do it differently. But I think the public networks will be a big part of it, the public blockchains, and to move that value and to actually make it function. And the other important thing is Bitcoin is moving into that sort of stable area where it is moving into reserves. Donald Trump is talking about it as a treasury reserve for the USA. We've got countries all over the world. We just saw South Africa just declared their first stable coin. Crypto is renaissance. It's just about to go into the renaissance. And the election is the catalyst, guys. The confluence shows the election is the catalyst.
And this is the thing that's probably the most biggest thing that popped last week was, or the week before, I don't even remember. One candidate said, yes, they're going to make Bitcoin a reserve asset. And then you hear news of Jamie Dimon pivoting to Bitcoin. Larry Fink is all in on Bitcoin. There's talk of either one of these two becoming a cabinet member as well. Wow. It's just all too it's all too weird right now. It's like a soap opera. Mando, I know you track all this stuff, and the big question is what everybody wants to know, and I get this question 100 times a day, is impact of Biden dropping out, Trump trade, which is basically Bitcoin becoming a reserve asset. What could this do for the space? What are your thoughts? Is it just hocus pocus, or is there something behind this? And we have the Bitcoin conference as well next week.
Yeah, look, I think there's definitely been a Trump trade for a lot of this year so far. I think part of the rally you've seen in macro has been because of that. And there was some trepidation this morning that you could see an unwinding of that. What I have seen over the last 24 hours since Biden dropped out is some hope from the left that this is an opportunity for a softening of the Democratic view towards crypto, that perhaps the vice presidential candidate they choose could be a bit more pro-crypto, that Kamala hasn't really been and Warren aren't really friends, and that her agenda isn't really reflective with what Kamala has said. I don't really know into the depths of that myself, but I do think it's perhaps an opportunity for the Democrats to become a bit more crypto friendly, because they have been outflanked there pretty sizably by Trump, right? Trump has come in and been very pro crypto. He's going to be speaking at Bitcoin National next week. He could be talking about Bitcoin being a reserve asset. So for me, all this ended up with is perhaps a better outcome in any scenario. You know, if the Democrats get in, I think they're probably going to move more towards, well, I hope at least they have an opportunity here to move more towards being more pro crypto. But even then, I think we're in for a scenario here where crypto dominates whatever happens. The extreme outcome I still think lies with Trump. You know, if Trump comes out next week and says, look, I want Bitcoin to be a reserve asset, I don't think the Democrats will follow him there, but I do think that's an incredibly bullish scenario for crypto. So yeah, I still think that crypto likes Trump more than it likes the Democrats here, but what I see here is more a softening of that. For broader macro, it's perhaps a little less certain. It's a little less certain because I think there'll be a bit more look into the policies, I think, of what Kamala's presidency could be. I wouldn't want to judge it, but for crypto, I see it more positive. Actually, following just the data stuff that you asked me to look into, you can see actually in the data. So Predictit have a 60% chance that Trump will win. Betfair similarly have 60% chance that Trump will win. And PolyMarket sits at 63 to 64%. So there's like a 4% delta between where crypto is betting and where Betfair and where Predictit are showing. So there is this slight skew in, and that probably again points to the idea that crypto wants Trump in. I think they see it as the most positive outcome for Trump to come in.
Interesting. Okay, we're going to move on. We've got a lot of agenda.
I'll just add
to get...
one thing, which I think is to just support what Mando said. That I also think that whichever new candidate comes in, for sure they will have a more positive stance to crypto, because one thing that has changed from last year is that it is legit now. You know, all the banks are positive because now there are ETFs. Remember, I think, James, the last DCA show of the year, or the last one before Christmas, we said here that we think that 2024, the banks will change their tune to crypto because ETF is coming and suddenly they have part in the business of brokering and selling these ETFs. And sure enough, that has played out this year. So it's not controversial in the same way as it was before. It's not some programmers trying to take over everything. No, now it's legit. It's part of the banking system, everything with ETFs. So I think it's an easy thing to say that, last year we had a different policy, but now we're changing it because of this and that. And there's too many voters who care about crypto for them to not take advantage of it. So I agree 100%. I think regardless of outcome, we have a positive political climate in the US. And but I think so too. I mean, Trump seems to have positioned himself as the most pro-crypto candidate. And it would be very interesting to hear what he says next week.
Awesome.
I think it's really interesting to bring it back to what Marty brought up. last week with the Chevron deference. Like, this is a really good time for politics to be shifting more towards crypto, because suddenly now it feels like politics is going to have way more power than the SEC. So the fact that both of them could be potentially going more pro crypto, this is why we're speaking about it on this show. Like, suddenly politics and not Gary Gensler is going to be the most important thing for crypto, and that's why we're talking about it so much.
I mean, my perspective has always been pretty clear. We know that they pretty much have moved the regulation of blockchain to the Department of Commerce to make it a public service. We know that. We also know that they're doing real-world asset tokenization of cash. Look at BlackRock's BUSDL or whatever. You know, they're a cash USD institutional digital liquidity fund. So we've got stablecoin, regulated stablecoin on public blockchain, and we've got tokenized cash. These two, there's definitely something going on where I believe that the controllers have decided, I still say it happened around February, March, April, that crypto is their friend and they're digitizing money. And they're doing it through many ways. Stablecoin regulation, obviously using public blockchain, Bitcoin as a reserve, and then now we've got tokenized cash with BlackRock, RWA. And that's growing radically. It's almost, I think, 500 million on its way. That's huge, okay? So we have a political move to blockchain is our friend and is a tool we can use. And so as investors, once again, invest in all of those aspects. You want to be in the rails that move the stable coin and the RWA, the tokenized cash, digital dollar, and you want to be in the reserve asset. You want to be in Bitcoin. You want to be in the store value. And I think altogether it just plays beautifully. Now, as far as Kamala Harris goes, she's been extremely quiet on her take on crypto. I spent an hour with the guys yesterday trying to find out, has she made a statement? How does she feel? Does she own crypto? Nothing. She's been extremely quiet. So we don't know. But like we all say, it's still a better scenario because she's younger. Okay? She is younger. That is a massive thing. She's more comfortable with technology. She's more open to it. You know, Joe Biden can never understand blockchain. Let's be serious. Kamala Harris can probably understand it, understand the effects of a digital dollar to assist in rebasing and controlling the debt. And so I think we're in a better position either way. Obviously, Trump is like full-blown bull run, and Kamala is, you know, more acceptance, more presidential acceptance, more political acceptance. It might be a slower move to an ultimate Bitcoin, you know, 128,000. But I think we're better off than we were from yesterday. Today, we're better off, as far as I'm concerned.
And there's some breaking news as well from GM Gains, and I just checked it as well. Gary Gensler is supposedly out. We don't know when exactly. We know that the Democratic Party, as CTO said, they're trying to clean up their act and get rid of that war against crypto reputation. So they've got to get rid of a couple of candidates to do that. But that would be big for this.
Where did you get that, Alpha?
Twitter. It's all over Twitter right now.
Is it
Blowing it. Just right in the word Gensler, you'll see it. And Dennis Porter, friend of the channel, he tweeted it, and he is tight in DC, real tight. He would not tweet something that's fake. So let me go pull up the. Let me see.
Is it the tip to resign in 2025 after Biden exit, Alpha, or is it
maybe or sooner? Dennis Porter is doing a little bit of a live stream right now as well. But either way,
that would be an obvious move. I mean, that would be an obvious move here, right? Like to really have a breakaway from, like, I'd only heard anecdotally that Warren and Kamala were not friends in the last 24 hours. I didn't know that. But then Warren did come out and endorse Kamala. But to really break away from that sort of policy, the move would just be to get rid of Gensler. So I would be unsurprised if they did that.
And we know what happens when that happens. That T-shirt becomes an ETF. Isn't that right, Marty? Anyway, we got a big agenda to get through. ETH ETF, and I've been saying this for a long time. We know it's probably going to be a big dunk after it launches this week. Now the media is beginning to say that Ethereum could encounter pressure, sell pressure after ETF debut amid surge in implied volatility. Okay, so what are your thoughts? Quick around the table. CTO, to you first. Do you think the ETH ETF, Grayscale, they've got a big bag of it? Do you think people will sell out of it like they did with GBTC, and that will cause sell pressure? And if you look at the ETH chart, it has been lagging other names like Bitcoin, like Solana all year.
Oh, absolutely. If I can show the chart,
Yes.
I think it's painfully obvious to everyone. So what the key thing to note here is what hasn't happened. This is the Ethereum to BTC chart, and there's been no pump. There's no breakout from the range. Nothing has happened, even though the ETF is coming now. I think a baseline scenario would have been to at least some pump before the trading start, and then perhaps a dump if there's like a sell the news type of behavior. But we haven't even gotten the pump before the trading start. In fact, this is kind of starts looking like a descending triangle here. But overall, it's a range, and it's looking very weak considering the historic event of getting an ETF to soon start trading. So yeah, it doesn't look great, especially if we consider the strength that Bitcoin and Solana has shown over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So yeah, very, very, very bad, actually, looking, considering the fundamentals of the situation.
Mando, would you go long ETH here?
Look, I've been said for a while before the ETF headline, that I was most bullish on Solana. After the ETF headline, I felt like it has this window, right? It has this window now with the ETF trade and potentially to get institutional funds to flow into ETH if you start to see tokenization from BlackRock and other big institutional players. Now it feels as though Solana is going to be catching it very quick, potentially on this ETF/institutional move. I think that window is narrowing. And when you have things like, Solana DEX volume eclipsing ETH plus BNB yesterday, when you're seeing it making the same amount of revenue as ETH, or at least total economic value as ETH, it's suddenly and that window of we need to get as many institutional funds onto ETH as quickly as possible is narrowing. I think it's in a precarious position. I don't think it's going lower, but I don't see value in it compared to Solana again, just because over the ETF trade for Solana, I don't think is a 2-year trade anymore. I think it could happen pretty soon after Trump comes into power. If you saw the speech or some of the speeches from JD Vance on crypto, they're going to be pushing through a lot, in my opinion. I think Solana would be the obvious one.
Yep. Well said. Marty, any thoughts? And
Yeah,
you mentioned something, by the way, Mando did mention this data. I call it SolDom.
I think it's quite obvious. It's a fundamental trade, right? Main TradFi traders and investors are looking for fundamentals, and Bitcoin had great fundamentals as a store of value. Ethereum was sold to them as a execution layer, but I just don't think fundamentally it has the revenue per market cap that they're looking for. It's not making enough money for the amount of money that's already invested in it, while Solana is making more money with substantially less. So I just think fundamentally its value proposition is not quite meeting the specs as it was sold. So if it was a store of value, I would consider it to actually be, its original thesis, digital oil. It could have had a better shot. But I think as an execution layer, I just don't feel like it's on par, especially for stable coins. I just don't think stable coins will move on Ethereum. I think Ethereum has a home in institutional RWA, which is great. That's probably what it's for. When you want to do 1 or 2 large transactions a month, buy and sell some tokenized stock or tokenized fund, 1 or 2 months, change a title, just do a couple transactions. But as far as an execution layer to like bring on 1 billion users or do point of sale for stable coins or take over from Visa, those things aren't going to happen. So like you just said, the revenue over the weekend showing Solana passing almost everyone else, including Ethereum. We've got 7 billion on DeFi and Solana now a day, guys. $7 billion a day going through Solana DeFi. These numbers just stand out. I think people are sitting on their hands with Ethereum. I think Benjamin Cowan says it best. Ethereum hasn't really corrected from its pump, guys. It's due for a correction. And until that time, I don't think you're going to see the inflows that you want. Given that, though, I think there is a moment in the future where Ethereum might get that moment and demand might come up, but not right now. I think it's Solana summer.
Yeah. And then other apps, one of the things that I always look at is breadth of Dapps across a chain. And I know, Amanda, you're the first one that alerted me earlier this year to pump.fun and how that thing is exploding. But it's, the main use case right now, I think from a transaction perspective, stable coins, it's Solana, not dollar transfer volume, but the amount of small little transactions. People are finding ways to move money around the world using Solana, even though they don't even know they're using a blockchain. Radium is crushing it right now. Jupiter is also crushing it. And sometimes Jupiter has over, 1 million users. What are the big narratives you guys see going forward? DEXs, AI, payments, NFTs, pump.fun stuff. Any big things pop out at you guys?
I mean, I provide liquidity. We all do in my community. That's pretty much what we do. We're bankers, and we've become pretty good at it. And we've got just so much on Solana, like Meteora's new DLMMs and stuff. I mean, you guys cannot believe this is the future of banking, and it's retail banking. You can become your own bank. I think liquidity providing on Solana for stable coin pairs, and then ultimately stable coins against each other to support, to be the liquidity providers of retail. I mean, this is a golden opportunity on Solana.
So, Marty, can you explain to the community what you mean by that? You're investing in JLP or?
No. So the way that DeFi works is that there are no counterparties, right? So everyone's they're talking to smart contracts or programs on Solana. They're called programs that run on the supercomputer, the public supercomputer, and you deal with the program. You don't deal with humans. So the way that the exchanges work is that it's swapping, right? So it's people swapping. It's algo bots swapping on Solana. It's humans swapping. There's just a lot of swapping going on, like 7 billion a day swapping. Now, the way it works is who provides the liquidity in order to do the swap. Remember, because a swap involves a moment of escrow. So the way AM works, automatic market makers in DeFi, is that they will go to a liquidity pool to get the assets on both sides of the swap. So at least there will be an escrow, so they can provide escrow. What you can do is you can provide that liquidity, so you can become a liquidity provider. Radium, Orca, Meteora, there's just so many on Solana. It's like just blowing up. And you yourself can get yield on your assets. So it's like a little bit more yield and riskier than staking. Obviously, staking, you're getting very little yield, and you're providing it with the network. Liquidity providing, you can choose which pairs you want. So it's kind of like trading. You can be involved in high volume meme coins. You can be involved in more stable coin swaps, but you are the provider of the liquidity, and you get a small fee. So you become the bank. I mean, that's all banks are doing. They're taking fees from just moving money around. And so this is liquidity providing is the future of banking. And we're doing it right now.
In fact, I'd like anybody here to comment on this. This is the last piece of FUD that everybody who's not on the Solana train throw at it because they're holding some legacy piece. And remember as well, I'd say 80 to 95% of YouTube is pumping stuff that is going to make you poor. And that's just a fact of life. Archie S says, how can Solana be true DeFi if the chain literally stops? We know, okay, Microsoft has been down longer than Solana this year. Fact. Second, we have Firedancer coming. It's already up in kind of a test environment right now running. Any technologists here want to talk about this and why it is FUD, or if it is something to be concerned about?
I think most people don't care.
Yeah.
They care more about low cost and speed. And most technologists, such as myself and others, tend to underestimate that. So it's important to be aware of that fact. Most people, they don't care about the centralized. They don't care if there's downtime. They want cheap and they want fast. And they want permissionless. They don't want to go and fill out some forms or something. They want to be able to access what they want to access. And then there's another thing they want also. They don't know they want it and they don't want it, but the kind of it is necessary. And that is some sort of vehicle to convince them to start using something. In So a good term to learn, if you haven't heard it before, everyone watching, is vehicle to mass adoption. So what is the vehicle that will take the great technology that we have built to mass adoption? Having the great technology is not enough. People have to be convinced one by one to actually start using it. That's how people work, because we're resistant to change. So from my life, building a great mobile network with mobile phones is not enough. You also need vehicle to mass adoption, which was the carrier, the operators who need to go and market to people one by one and say that, you should buy a phone, it's great. And people are, I don't think so. No, but you should try it and so on. And there was a cost to it, which ended up at about $5. That's how much it cost to convince someone that they should have a mobile phone. Then in the end, everyone in the world got one. But it doesn't happen by itself. It cost $5 to convince them. And the same is true for technology or for Solana or any other thing. So what is the vehicle that's going to convince someone to begin using it? And that could be, for example, that they want to trade something and they feel that they have to start using the wallet, the phantom wallet or something to be able to make that money. Or it's like a marketing campaign, or it's something else. But it's good to be aware of that. What is the vehicle for mass adoption? It's something that Ethereum notoriously has never had. While I feel Solana has been better at it from the start, Polygon actually tried very hard to build that also, but then they had some other issues. They tried to sign up a lot of consumer interfaces, but due to other reasons, to get too long of a story, but they didn't really succeed so much. But I feel that Solana is doing that better. And for example, then PolyMarket can be one of those, so on. But payments would be the ultimate one. That is kind of we would like to see.
I agree. Marty, any quick thoughts on this one? We have 6 more
Yeah,
items.
I mean, all chains go down. I mean, they just don't hear about them because no one cares about them.
Or nobody uses them.
Got a lot of people's eyes on it. You must understand that it's single point of failure. It's typical technology stuff, architecture stuff. When you first start a project, and Solana is still mainnet beta, it's still a beta project till it becomes version 2. You have a single point of failure, right? And that is you have a single validator. So you have a single code library in GitHub, open source library that everybody's pulling to run their validators. And if there's a major change to that program, there's only one version of it, so you have to restart all your validators. That's a single point of failure. Ethereum had that. I was developing in Solidity in the beginning on Ethereum when they just had the single validator from the Ethereum Foundation. It went down 7 times in a week once. They were just updating the version. Now, as a technologist, we're used to that. I'm like, oh, version 3, let's get it. I can't wait. But for people in the Bitcoin community, especially decentralized maxis, they're like, oh, God, the blockchain can never go down. Now, they must understand that all blockchains have gone down. In fact, Bitcoin has been forked how many times? That's not just going down. That's literally making a new chain and cutting off the other one. Ethereum forked to ETC Classic. I mean, that was from an exploit. It got so badly exploited, they decided to fork the whole chain. That's way worse.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Solana now has Anza validator coming out, 2 other extensions of it, forks of it, as well as FireDancer, which means it's going to have at least 4 versions of validators on the single public chain. So it no longer has a single point of failure. So the whole narrative, please.
Well said. Well said. Move along indeed. Mando, you said something very brilliant about 3 months ago, if I recall. And the question I had for you was, when altcoin season? And you said, it's already happened. You just got to be in the right name. So here we are again. The question we always get, when altcoin season, when alt season. Any updates for the community here on this?
Yeah, it's a little bit difficult. I think we, in the last few weeks, you've seen Bitcoin dominance kind of hover around the same sort of level. Solana's obviously led, if you consider that an altcoin or a major, but that's led some of like the major altcoins. Other than that, there's been some winners in the deep in space, which is largely maybe in a Solana trade, because a lot of those are on Solana, and it's kind of returned back to memes. There was a period of time where it felt like maybe the meme coin season was over. those have come back very, very strong over this period. Look, I listened to like what we just spoke about, and my honest opinion is I agree with what CTO said, in that I think the number one use case of blockchains is as a form of payment, a medium of exchange, and I think that those are the narratives which I can buy into the strongest, and potentially the RWA narrative, but we need some more regulation around that to like be able to push that through heavily in the US. So I'm not a huge believer in a lot of the different use cases of crypto, let's say. When I go through like all the different sectors of altcoins, sometimes I just feel like, well, I kind of fail to believe in the actual sector itself as a use case. Or even if I believe in blockchain as the underlying technology that's going to be used, I don't see the point in the coin itself. Like the coin often doesn't actually bring value back to the user. Often they're like governance coins, or it's kind of left unclear how the value accrues back to them in any sort of way. So the cleanest way for me to play crypto in general is by forms of exchange, which is why I kind of think the majors have always been the strongest for me in terms of narrative. And then I like some of the meme coin narratives. So I'm not really a big believer in altcoin season, particularly altcoins which kind of try and merge crypto technology with some other form of utility. Not because I don't think blockchains could potentially underpin that. It's just the coins themselves often they don't get me that. They don't seem that attractive to me. So I think altcoin season continues to happen. You continue to see things hit $1 billion, but they're not often happening in sectors outside of memes or odd things in deep in potentially, and AI's kind of run its course already. It felt like this cycle.
Yeah, in fact, you just stumbled across AI. The largest AI training cluster on the planet was just activated by a guy called Elon Musk. And the question is, this is huge. And I know that, Marty, you're interested in trading with blind Grok calls. Talk to us about where all of this trading world is going with AI and what it can do for the audience.
James, this is terrific stuff. And guys, we will continue to follow this over the next weeks in the show. I think that we're seeing a major move, like we said, in PolyMarkets, in predictive, chain-based predictive tools and AI. But also now what we're seeing is AI trading. So you can ask the AI, should I go long or short? And it's going to give you an extremely good answer. It's going to tell you based on your risk tolerance. It's like a bloody financial advisor at this point. We used to call them robo-advisors. I think these AI indicators and AI, you can literally ask ChatGPT right now. You could cut and paste any trading view chart of any chart and say, what do you think? And it'll give you an unbelievable trading strategy based on what you want to do. Risky, good, bad, how much, small, what kind of trade. Remarkable evolution in AI use case in trading, which I think is going to take the markets by storm. Like somebody said, you said that PolyMarkets is sort of creating the market now.
Yep.
I think these AI tools are going to read human information and start to create the market too, or influence the market. I think this is something happening.
So what trades have you done? Have there been any trades you put on the back of what Grok?
Yeah, I mean, me and my
which
community,
AI?
We were trading Solana the whole
using?
weekend, Mando. And we were just asking ChatGPT, Grok, and a couple of other ones constantly, where should my stop loss be? What leverage should I, like literally the most detailed question you would want to ask. Like what leverage, when do I enter? What should my stop loss be? What's my take profit? You get an answer and it's extremely accurate. I don't know how it's doing it. No idea. But I have been using TradingView AI chart patterns now since I had TradingView on the show. And I keep a spreadsheet of my win ratio based on purely waiting for it to hit the target on a 5 minute, 15 minute, or 1 hour. It's in the 80s. It's extremely clever. I don't know how it works it out, but AI trading tools are here and they will affect the market.
And in fact, I've been saying for a long time that AI is coming. It's going to change everything. It's going to make all of us, at least impact our lives, make us redundant. There's a lot of people already spinning up AI-based YouTube videos.
James, one last thing that's very exciting is Solana has a AI block explorer coming. This, I think, is a phenomenal invention.
What's it called?
And I actually had another project building one for multi-chain. But these are machine learning algorithms that go and look at the actual on-chain data, all the transactions, all the wallets, the whole thing. And you can ask using questions. So you can say, who sent me this $20? And it's going to, based on the wallets and the interactions of those wallets and the assets involved and the time and the history, give you a really educated guess without you having to understand.
I know
CTO's
thinking about security right now. That's very dangerous for security, correct, CTO?
Yeah, just on the AI thing. I think that if there is an opportunity in short-term trading that is easy, that you paste the chart in ChatGPT and it tells you what to do, then that opportunity is quickly gonna get filled. I don't know if it is it's fantastic if it works now, but I don't think it's gonna work for long if it does. There's been some other AI projects who have tried to do this for a while. None of them really succeeded. I think because if it actually works, it works for everyone, and then the opportunity gets filled up. But some things AI can't really do today. That's the bigger trending questions, like, will Bitcoin become a world reserve currency? AI can't answer. Is Solana going to become the totally dominating smart contract platform, or will Ethereum come back, or will it be another protocol? AI can't answer. The reason is that there is no short-term feedback loop. If you're like a programmer or something, the way AI works is that you feed it back with the correct outcome, and then next time it sees something similar, it knows what the outcome will be. If there is no feedback loop, AI can't do it. While in short-term price patterns, the feedback loop is perfect and immediate. So I think for sure AI is going to learn to do this. The problem with that is that then it's accessible to everyone, and because of price isn't liquidity isn't infinite. It means that if there's a buying opportunity, if a lot of people are buying, price goes up, and perhaps the opportunity doesn't exist anymore. But it's very interesting what Marty has found, and I'm happy to learn more.
And what both you said is very interesting. Mando, I'm going to push this to you, because we know for the last decade, algos and bots have been running big assets for a long time. And it's very, very difficult to out-trade them on the short term. You can if you're very good, but it's extremely difficult. Putting this to you, how is this different? So I was for years now been saying, okay, AI is coming. It's going to, once the big money market makers see exactly how they can utilize it, they're going to go into all markets fast. They'll be able to analyze 10,000 charts simultaneously, and that will eliminate all short-term profit potential from retail investors. How do you see this as being different from the algo bot world for the last decade in TradFi, in crypto today with AI?
Yeah, I think it just democratizes it more. Like, the big algo trading firms, we used to trade against a ton of them, like the Treasuries of the world. And they often have proprietary models, and they would sell these to customers, and you can invest in their funds. That would be like an algo style trading model. GLG, Jane Street, all these big algo driven funds used to have them. I think that this allows you to create one in your, in your study, in your bedroom. Like, you could create your own algo, which could potentially rival something that's been created by, used to be created for 10 years by these sort of proprietary trading firms. So I think that's what it does. I agree with what CTO says. In that world, you could see everything kind of become it all gets competed away, let's say, the gains. It will probably be interesting to see. The most important thing in that world then will be unique data sets, in my opinion. So if your model is based on public information and public information alone, I think you're going to have difficulty. If you are sitting there and you have your own private data set, whatever that is, I mean, who knows, but like something that could affect markets, and then you feed it into the model, I think that's going to be important. So what I could see here, I'm just thinking about as I'm talking, is the emergence of a valuable private data sets which either get sold for a premium or you have to create yourself. So I can see that becomes the world. If public data, particularly the stuff that gets fed into all these public LLMs, is available for everyone to use and can be distilled as if you were a cutting edge Wall Street trading firm, I think we're all going to be looking for private data sets which give you that edge. So that's kind of where I see things going in that world.
Yep. Excellent. Now, we did talk a few minutes ago regarding payments being the biggest use case. There's a whole bunch of laser eyes popping up again. I've never once embraced laser eyes, but
we didn't talk about Elon Musk laser eyes.
Yeah, what exactly does this mean? Is this crypto payments coming to X, or is this Elon buying more Bitcoin, or what does this mean? Because I don't know.
I think he's going to be talking at the RNC Bitcoin. Sorry, at the Bitcoin conference.
I don't think so.
I think he's going to pop in at the Bitcoin conference, make a big announcement.
I doubt that.
there was headlines because he flew to Memphis, right? He flew to Memphis because he's opened up this huge AI training center there. I think it's the biggest supercluster ever, right? And that's relatively close to Bitcoin Nashville. And then he's gone laser eyes. The issue about laser eyes is there's the whole concept that Biden did this, right? It was dark Brandon, I think it was. So it's unclear if Elon's kind of maybe mocking Biden or there's some sort of political message in what he's doing there. But those were the headlines from crypto Twitter. He's either speaking at Bitcoin Nashville, he's either a Bitcoin maxi again, or it's some form of political play. I actually don't know with this one.
Good stuff. It's a mystery. And the bots are coming. We've been talking about the bots coming. Elon Musk just announced, and this is all the confluence of everything happening at once with AI, etc. But there'll be genuinely useful humanoid robots in low production in Tesla, working in factories. They already have, I think, 21 or 3 of them working in factories in Austin right now. But there's going to be up to 1,000 or 2,000 of them next year working in Tesla factories. And then high production for other companies will be sold in 2026. This is going to dramatically change the face of the world, change the face of factory workers and threats. It's also going to make a lot of companies extremely productive and generate a lot more margins and profits. Any thoughts on what this means? The bots are coming. How will this impact our lives?
You tell us, James. What do you think this means?
Yeah, I think it's massive. I think it's between cars that drive themselves and bots that do useful work or play the piano or babysit or do the gardens, whatever. It's going to really change a lot of things. Just like AI is going to change a lot of things in trading, this is going to change a lot of things in how people actually earn money. It's going to be a threat. It is going to create abundance, but for, I believe, a select few, not for everybody. I think it's pretty revolutionary.
Yeah, the whole question of how do people define their lives? It used to be what you do, your work. If you take away their work, how are they going to define their lives? Will they return to spirituality, art? Will they get UBI, stablecoin airdrops? We don't know.
Yeah. And that's how UBI is coming. That's why they need the CBDCs so they can.
Well, blockchain makes UBI extremely easy.
Yes,
and flat
exactly.
tax. And flat tax.
Big time. CTO, any thoughts on this? Being a technology.
I'm just excited about it. I love change. I'm pro change. Most people don't like change, but I love it. I feel it's exciting and things are changing faster than ever. Like the AI revolution is amazing. Things that were impossible a couple of months ago suddenly is possible. And was it today that this world's biggest cluster of trading cluster of AI actually went live with Elon's help? It's fantastic.
Breaking news, right? We've got some breaking news. Senator Loomis, who has the Loomis-Gilchrist Stablecoin Act in Senate for vote, just tweeted they expect some big news this week. I think the US is going to vote on stablecoin regulation.
That's good. Another tailwind for crypto right there. Yeah, it's but yes, change is good. Okay. The world is moving extremely fast, no doubt about that. And
anyway, what I was getting to was that it is, change is coming and it's going to disrupt a lot of people's lives. I'm not saying that's great in any way. I'm just saying that I think it's going to happen. A lot of high-paid jobs today are going to get replaced by AI that costs nothing. And probably differences will increase in the world. Some people will get more leverage. Some other people will find themselves struggling to make money. And I think the importance of learning to invest in technology has never been as big as it is now, because there is enormous opportunities here. There are also threats if you want to see change as a threat to the status quo. So the safe job isn't safe. So my recommendation would be to, invest at least some part in your day to try to learn about this technology change that's coming, try to learn investing. I think that's the best bang for the buck in terms of time that you can spend your hours on today, because big changes are coming. We're seeing these robots coming as well. Humanoid robots seems like science fiction, but here they are, and they're going to be smart.
Yep, exactly. Final thing, Brics blockchain payments. What is the impact on the US dollar currency? For those Brics fans out there, we're talking a lot about payments today. Surprises me. Brics payment system will be blockchain based. And what does it mean for the dollar?
Well, we were on this show last week talking about how Russia was implementing US stablecoins, potentially its own stock market. I don't see the death of the dollar, if I'm honest. I think it's slightly overblown. I don't even agree. I think the BRICS will agree on a common currency here. Like, you think China and India are going to agree on a common currency? There's been some thawing of the relationship there, but I still think that they're kind of frenemies in certain standpoints. Saudi Arabia as well. Like, I think it's difficult to imagine the BRICS agreeing on a common currency. I do think that you will see blockchain-based payments coming in. I just still, in my mind, I think it's difficult to get rid of the dollar for a lot of this stuff.
What about game theory and a little bit of allocation to Bitcoin as a reserve asset for these new currencies?
That would be great, and you could see it. Like, you have seen some of these obviously move away from using the dollar for inter trade between the two of them, but. Yeah, you could. There's been some talk about like a gold-backed BRICS currency. Maybe you could get Bitcoin around that. I think the thing is, Bitcoin affects these countries whether they want to or not. This is the great thing about crypto: is like when your citizens are all using it, it kind of affects you anyway. Like, I think, yeah, crypto is going to come in and affect all these economies whether they like to or not, particularly the BRICS, and many of the other countries which are chasing BRICS membership are going to be affected by crypto.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's...
you guys saw that South Africa minted their first regulated rand.
Exactly.
That's the S in BRICS, BRICS. The S is South Africa. So already we're seeing BRICS printing, and this is, like I was saying, RWA backed by some kind of cash or asset. I think the crypto rail will be the beneficiary of all of this. There'll be assets, there'll be Bitcoin-backed stable coins, there'll be Bitcoin, there'll be local fiat-backed stable coins, and everyone will use it to settle and trade across border to circumvent SWIFT. I mean, blockchain is better than SWIFT. That's all. Just a better technical solution that can't be weaponized.
That's a really good point. Good point. Like, in some ways, blockchain, the way that the dollar will survive in these countries is because, it can trade freely without the need for SWIFT. One of the reasons why you saw this movement away from the dollar, particularly places like Russia, is because they couldn't even use it. Whereas suddenly crypto gives them this alternative way for them to move dollars. I think you could see that grow for sure.
Good.
I mean, one observation is that global protocols tend to win over local protocols, even no matter how big they are, the local ones. So, I mean, that's an argument for global protocols like global stable coins, smart contract platforms, and Bitcoin.
Correct.
And MetaPlanet has just gone up 20%.
Yeah, 21. I saw that.
Because they added Bitcoin to their treasuries. The game theory is happening. It's happening all over the place. We're talking pension funds. We're talking governments, we're talking new currencies, we're talking treasuries. Oh, it's
and there must be board members sitting there. And did it go up 20%? I didn't even see that. So if that went up,
it's gone up 80% in the last month or so since they started. So it's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, other CFOs sitting there with stock options, they're not at least a little bit interested to do this.
Yeah, it's the top performing stock, I think, in the Japanese stock market right now. So
people forget that MicroStrategy wasn't a Bitcoin company.
Nope.
Yeah.
You know, it was a tech company for what 25 years before it started buying Bitcoin.
It began as mobile analytics, social analytics. You know, so craziness.
You could very, very quickly see other companies suddenly realizing that they can become Bitcoin companies. No one remembers what MicroStrategy was, and now it's the Bitcoin company.
Well, we try to keep this show to an hour so as not to burn too much of the audience's time. We covered 16, 18 topics today. It's been incredible. Conference is happening. I want to thank you all for making it as well. I know it's summertime. It's July. People are on vacation and stuff. I hope we'll all be here together next Monday. And I don't know, whoever wants to moderate, let us know in the group chat, and we'll take it from there. Any final thoughts?
Show, guys. Brilliant show.
How bullish are we going into next week? I mean, Bitcoin conference
has never been more bullish.
Yeah.
Ever.
Can't not be.
I like Marty's AI targets. I think we're heading to 120.
Cup and handle, brother. Cup and handle.
120 by when, Marty? Putting you on the spot.
Oh, I call it leading up to the election until the first 100 days of the new president. Within there, I think. So,
final question that I get asked all the time is, will this bull market run in a traditional cycle? Will it run for 8 years like we did after the gold ETF? Or will it end early because it started early, like Q1 2025? Let's have that as the final thoughts. Quick around the table. CTO, you first. How long will the bull market run? 8 years or another 2 or 3 quarters or somewhere in between?
I think these cycles will continue with steep parabolas and then big correction, and then another parabola starts again. I think the speculative nature of these digital assets will remain like this. I don't think it will change because institutions are coming in. No, they're the biggest speculators. They're the professional speculators.
Okay, Marty, when bull market over?
I mean, I just go by the global liquidity cycle. It's been accurate since 1968. And it's right now, I mean, if you pull it up, just Google global liquidity cycle. There's your 4-year cycle. It's got nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's basically just global liquidity. So it lasts around 4 years. So you can see we're going to run. I mean, if you do TA, you can see we're bottoming. This is it. We're just about to go through from 2024 to 2026 through a massive liquidity pump globally. And that's when we're going to pump. So I think we'll see the 128 at the top of that or more. And then we'll come back down. And it also lines up with the, when to get rich chart from 1846, which says sell 2026. There'll be a bear market till 2032, buy 2032, sell 2035. I just live by that right now. Global liquidity cycles. Look into it.
Love it. Mando, final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a believer that with all the TradFi money coming in, that we see shallower cycles. We still have cycles, but I think the trough of the next cycle is probably much higher than the peak of this cycle. Let's put it that way. Like, I think 69K probably becomes the trough of the next cycle, or probably even slightly higher than that.
Yeah, I estimated a maximum somewhere between 40 and 60% maximum drawdown, and it would take a nasty bear market to kick that down. But the days of 85% drawdowns are gone. So that, everybody, thank you all. See you all next Monday. Thank you, Marty, CTO.
Yeah, man, love you guys.
CTO, you travel safe, everybody.
Mando, happy travels.
And thank you to everybody in the audience and the moderators in the chat and the nearly 6,500 people watching across all these different channels. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. Cheers.
There you go. Thanks, guys.
Yes.
Bullish. Let's go.
Right. Yes.